podcasts, which could be in the hundreds or thousands, I have an idea of what I want to get across or what I want to talk about. But all that talking is an intentional perspective on where I want to go with this and what I want to share with you, or what by the end of each session or each at the end of the series of what I want to leave you with. What's the transformational experience I want you to have? As a life coach, it's the same thing with each one of my sessions with clients. Is I want to leave my client with something, and I want them to walk away with something they didn't necessarily have when the session started, or when our work started many months ago, or perhaps years. And it's really important to get clear about that. And this is probably, I think, the sixth podcast that I'm doing. And at first it seemed kind of easy to do, I'll just talk about this or I'll talk about that, and the intention will be clear. But it's really challenging to sit with, what is it that I'm actually attempting to share with you? What is it that's the intention of all of these words? And the time for me to do this, the time for you to listen, what's this about? And it's the same with how I come into my life and reality. How do I choose to be in my reality, in this body, in this vehicle? What's the intention of being here now? What's the purpose, if you will? What's the purpose of the meaning of all of this? And initially in engaging with this notion of aging, it's just part and parcel of being human, or being a dog or being a plant, as we all go through this life cycle of growth and maturation and then death. So what's the intention of the podcast? What's the intention of my life in this form? What's the intention of reality in general? And probably each one of us has our own thoughts about that, our own perceptions, our own reality of how we see the importance of being who we are. One of the things I've learned as a life coach, which is different than what I learned as a therapist, is that every single one of my clients is absolutely fascinating, and that they have this capacity within them to have a trajectory of what they want in their life. So that sense that everyone is fascinating, I'm always curious about who's inside the body, who's inside the thought system, who's inside running the vehicle, driving this vehicle, towards thriving, or towards problems, or towards wherever they're going. It's really a wonderful thing. And so part of my intention is to empower you guys to look at yourself and go, wow, Rosie thinks I'm pretty amazing and pretty fascinating. And maybe I could look inside myself and see what is fascinating about me. It's interesting that most of us desire others to find us desirable. We want others, someone special perhaps, or just people in general, to think that we're fascinating, and they want to know us and they want to love us. And yet so few of us actually give ourselves that level of presence, that level of attention. And very few of us find ourselves fascinating and want to be curious about who we are inside this process. And I know that part of that is cultural. So many people say, well, I was taught not to think about myself. I was taught not to think I'm a smarty pants or I'm better than anybody else. And it's not about that. It's about really understanding that you, as a unique being in this human form, has something that no one else has. And even though there's so much training to be like other people in the consensus reality, there's a norm, even within that norm, each of us is a unique being and has a unique contribution to the unfolding of this planet, unfolding of civilization, unfolding of consciousness. And it's true. I mean, that's my truth. And part of that for me is I do these podcasts so that it becomes more of a truth for you, that there's someone inside you that has something very unique and special to give to the world that nobody else has. And I hope to give you some points of reference for you to go, oh yeah, that makes sense. I can see that. Or no, that doesn't work for me. And even in that conversation, you might go, oh, that doesn't work for me. That's a really good thing to know, because now you know that what I'm saying or what I'm pointing to may be not in alignment with what's a point of reference for you. That's good. And that's an indication you may not agree with me, but then when you're not agreeing with me, you're finding that reference point within yourself that you're saying, no, that doesn't work for me. And there is perhaps that moment where there's a lack of resonance. So I'm saying something and you go, yeah, that makes sense. There's a resonance with what I'm saying. And other times you go, no, that doesn't work for me. There's a dissonance. And in knowing that, you go, that's my meanness says that doesn't work for me. And that's a really good thing. It's an indicator of who you are inside that's different from what I'm saying or what the world is saying, the consensus reality, that you have a point of reference that is unique and yours. This morning I got up and I was thinking about what I would be doing a podcast on today, and the idea of getting in my car and going to work, getting out of my car, it was that thought that I had for the last few hours, actually, in terms of how to use that as an analogy that, obviously we're spiritual beings having a human experience. So we're a spirit being, light being, that we come into this human form, this vehicle. We get in the vehicle, we drive it around, we have adventures, we watch it wear and tear, we do what we do to keep it healthy enough or useful enough to get to where our destination is. And when we're done, we're done. We leave our bodies, we leave our vehicles, and we get out and do something else. And that was really kind of fun to think about, and at the same time, utilize that in terms of where do we want to go within these bodies? What's the experience that we want to have? What is it that you yourself want to have as a human experience that perhaps you haven't had yet? And the thing about aging, if you will, or the thing about being in our bodies for as long as we're in our bodies, is we have opportunities to grow and have experiences that we haven't had yet. And I referenced Dexter Yates a couple of sessions ago, who's 74 and does Ironman events. And she's pretty phenomenal in that she continues to support her body and supplement her body and exercise and nourish her bodies in ways that it's still healthy. She's still growing muscle mass, which is generally unheard of for people in their 70s. It's where we usually decline. And the same with bone density. She's still growing bone density so that she's still a very vital human being. We all have that capacity. It's that her intention in her life is strong enough that she keeps growing the capacity and the potential to live into that so that her vehicle stays thriving until it doesn't. So I'd like to leave you with the idea of you, number one, being just a pretty fascinating, curious being, and that there's so much to learn about you. And I think that's part of why we come to the earth, is to learn about you in this human form, in this spirit form, and see what's the potential of that. Who are you in your potentiality? But also to question, how is it that you want your life to unfold? Big adventures, little adventures, intimacy, vulnerability, and in the truest, healthy, wonderful way of the closeness that we can experience in our humanness, that we experience differently when we're not in human form. So there's ways that we can be that you get to decide for yourself, and it may not fit the model of what other people think is the way to go. And that's the whole purpose of you being in your own car, in your own vehicle, is you get to drive it where you want and have the adventure you want. So that's pretty much it for today. I look forward to being with you again soon. Thanks so much for listening. Bye for now.